So welcome to our next edition of SATalks, and I'm really excited to be talking to Georgina Smith today. Georgina is Head of Distribution and Client Services for Innate and Stanlib. So welcome, Georgina. Brilliant to talk to you. But there's a couple of things that I'd really like to get into in this SATalks edition. And the first of which is a really big thing over here in the UK. Lots and lots of talk about it, lots and lots of action about it. And that is the dreaded replatforming. And I say dreaded replatforming just because it's hit the news over here in so many different ways, and there's always great big numbers around it, and there's always problems, and there's always panic around it. But you guys have been through a replatforming, and you're kind of 4.5 years down the line, and I'd just like to ask you, what happened? How did it go? Where are you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. First, it's great to see you, Emma. You're right. But from a client perspective, what the reason that we looked to replatform, and when we say replatform, it's taking your old platform tech, and in our case, it was putting in something totally new tech, which makes your system and your advisory world run much smoother. And certainly in our case, and you will, I'm sure, Emma, you'll have views on your other clients that do this, but in our case, we had a legacy of an old bank system, an old life system, both butchered to try to be something that a financial advisor might want to use. And there's only so much butchering and slicing and dicing and bolting on of extra bits that might work. And that only goes so far. It's a little bit like having a house, and you buy an old house and you've got an old kitchen, and you've got the layout isn't quite right, it doesn't flow quite right, and the front door's not in the right place, the windows aren't in the right place. It's exactly like that with an old platform, and you get to a point where you go, well, we could just refurb the kitchen, or we could do the whole thing. And that's what replatforming is. It's doing the whole thing, and it's actually saying this old tech that we've tried to butcher to be something that advisors want, it's just not working anymore. So let's build something that advisors really want. And in our case, we actually got advisors in the room and said, what is it you want? How do you want it to look? How do you want it to behave? How do you want to interact with it? And that's really where we started. And so it's a completely new bottom-up kind of way of doing things, actually engaging with your customer, the advisor in our case, and building something bespoke, advisor inspired, we call it, for them. And that's what replatforming is. It future-proofs you so that you can then adapt to new regulation, to new features, to new demands of the market, as opposed to trying to jemmy something else in when it comes along. So it really is as simple as that. You get to a point where you go, we can't handle this anymore. We cannot work in this old school way anymore. We have to move to something new. And that, in essence, is what replatforming is. But Emma, I mean, I guess you've seen other clients as well, the journey that they've been on. What's your insight into this?
Yeah, so I mean, I totally get it. And I love the idea of getting advisor-inspired thought process behind all of this, because at the end of the day, they're the clients and they need to be able to navigate their way through your platform in the way that they want to be able to navigate their way through your platform. And I think I've just got a big vision of advisors and you guys sitting in a big room and a load of post-it notes on the wall to say that needs to poke into that and that needs to poke into that, and it all needs to flow really well. And I love that. I really love that. What I do think, and what I'd love to explore a little bit further, if possible, is you don't just then click your heels 3 times and it's happened. And so once you've got the whiteboard and you've written all over the wall and you've decided between you and the advisors what it needs to look like, what happens then? How do you do it? Because I know what we would we talk about microservices, we talk about micro journeys, we talk about all of those sorts of things, but they don't really mean anything until you put them into context. So does that, you know, can I throw it back in as much to say, yeah, I get really excited about all that sort of stuff, but how do you do it? What did you do?
Yeah, I mean, and until you've been on the journey, you don't actually know. So I think back, if I rewind to when I first joined Stanlib, and what we called the group investment platform at the time, I was number 6 through the door. So that's how small the team was that started building the Innate platform. And I remember walking in, and pretty much the second week that I was into discovery days. And that's where we got you guys in, Emma, and we started to understand, having spoken to advisors in one round. You know, you don't just take what advisors want and then go and build it. It's an iterative process. So we got into a room and we actually said, well, you know, how should it look? What should it be like? They have to understand the techie people, they don't just have to understand what the advisors want, they have to understand what the tech does currently, and then what they have to build as a bridge, to gap fill. And there's some unique things in the South African market that need to be catered for, you know, endowments being one of them, you know, the way living annuities work being another one. So there's some extra stuff that needs to be understood and then catered for. And then, of course, you then bolt on the very specific stuff to Innate. And how do we want advisors and clients to experience it? You know, we've got an ecosystem, if you like, that we've set up ourselves as to, you know, how we're going to service this. You know, there's a small ops department, because of course it's digital, but then there is a client servicing department, our key account managers, our CAMs as we call them, who look after our advisors one-to-one. And then of course there's the sales force. So how does all of that interact? So it's much more than just a piece of tech. It's a piece of tech and then everything else that goes around it, and then understanding for every single journey, every single thing that you could do on a platform, and there is lots, how that is all going to work. Then you put on top of that all the communication you're going to send out to your client. Now, how's that going to read? How does it look? You know, in old legacy world, we used to send out pages and pages of terms and conditions. And I mean, goodness me, the poor clients, I mean, I don't know how they understood what they were signing most of the time. Everyone just signs blindly and just sends it back in. Now we've completely revamped that and made it so that, you know, it's really easy to read language. And people kind of gloss over that kind of stuff, but it's so important. You know, I can read a document, go, okay, yeah, I understand that. I understand what I'm doing. And it's all of, or when you add up all of those little things together, you get an experience, which is not just the experience of the tech, it's the experience of everything end to end. And that's where I think it's so different. You know, in old legacy world, we used to talk about tech, service, yeah, and that they were the two buckets. And there was your price, you know, everyone talks about price. So you talk about tech, service, and price. That should all be grouped together as one experience. It's an experience now. You can't think of these things separately. You have to think of them as one joined up ecosystem together. And what's the experience I'm getting? So I've kind of gone off pat there from your question, but yeah, what do you do next? It's a discovery day, but it's so important that the people you're working with, in our case, it was you guys, Bravura, understand the ethos, the way you are, the way the company shows up. And each company shows up in a different way. Each platform shows up in a different way. And the way we wanted to show up was, you know, advisor inspired, purpose built for the advisor. That's exactly how we wanted to show up, and a very understandable and accessible platform from a client perspective, although they can't transact, but they can understand what their money is doing for them, what their advisor is doing for them from an investment perspective. So that's really kind of that's the first step. Just get on a par with each other from a tech perspective. And that's really important because there are quite a few platform providers out there who don't understand that, who have this one size fits all. You know, this is the way we do it, fit into these guardrails, adapt your processes, adapt your systems, lose your flexibility and do it our way, because that's the cheapest way to do it. And we were very clear that we didn't want to go down that route, which is why we partnered with you guys and said, no, we want to build an experience which works for our clients and our advisors in South Africa.
it's so refreshing to hear that your journey with Innate, you know, albeit 4 years ago, and it taking that time to be able to get to where you want to get to, but actually it was driven with the right thought process in mind. And that is so refreshing, because, you know, quite often as a big tech company, we're used to waiting for someone to say, I want one of those. And one of those will likely be the same as something else that we've done. And it's just, the world would never go anywhere, would it, if everything looked the same? So how refreshing. And I think that that's a massive learning curve for the UK, to actually sit back and listen, whether you're an advisor firm, whether you're a platform, whether you're a bank, whoever you are that want to be able to offer a platform as a service to your clients, whoever they are.
It's who you get in the room to be innovative around how you deliver the things that you want to deliver. So let me give you an example. Paper forms. Most old legacy platforms do paper forms, and then COVID came along, and we saw the emergence of digital signatures. You know, so we moved from a wet signature to a digital signature. Now, when you look at how Innate does things, well, there's no signature, there's no form. We were born digital. You know, we started digital. We said, no, we are fully digital. You don't need any kind of form, any kind of signature. It's all taken care of in a set process, which is fully approved. In fact, we spent hours with the FSCA here, taking them through it, getting approval for it, and explaining to them the new way in which we wanted to do business. And the reason I'm telling you that story is because so often you have people who've worked in an old platform who just want to put it online, as opposed to thinking so differently about what could be. And it's a very cliche example, but the iPhone, the smartphone, nobody knew they wanted an Apple iPhone. Nobody knew, you know, you didn't wake up and go, well, you know what I want is a smartphone. No one did that. You know, we just saw it and went, oh, well, that's pretty cool. I think I'll give that a go. And it's only because of that innovative thinking behind the creativity of what could be, how could we do things, and then working with your tech provider to build it, then that actually gives you the platform to be able to go out and do something totally new. And that's where I think so many people fall over when they're building platforms, because one, they're trying to do it as a side of desk exercise. I've got to keep running my legacy platform. Oh, now someone's coming along and talking to me about how you want to do top-ups. Okay, so I need to think about how I want to do top-ups. Well, I just want to do it how I do it at the moment, but just make it digital. But that's not innovative thinking. Okay, and that's the difference. You know, when you have some really good proposition people in the room who think differently about how you could do things, that's when you start to get some really cool stuff out the door. But it takes time. It takes a lot of darkened rooms. It takes some arguments. It takes a lot of Post-it notes, and it takes a lot of talking. And then you finally get there. But you must make space and time to do that.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant. I think it's absolutely brilliant, and I love it. And you're so right about the partnership as well. So you know, tech provider, advisor, users, and the business itself all working together to design the proposition, which doesn't need to look exactly the same. In fact, you don't want it to look exactly the same as everyone else. And also it's creating that innovation. So I absolutely applaud you for doing that. But also I think we could learn so many lessons over here to do it that way, because we've had a number of platforms delivered in the UK market that all look the same, and they all do the same. And actually, we could do a whole session on value for money and the value that the platform adds and all of those sorts of things. But the platform itself, your platform, is only going to add value if those end clients or those end advisors feel that they're getting something better than they used to get, and their experience is a lot better. So that's amazing. One of the questions that I wanted to ask you is, well, two things actually, if you were starting again, you were building the house again, where would you put the kitchen? No, I mean, if you were building the platform again, you mentioned about asking the advisors what they want, but what are the sort of questions that advisor, or you would ask an advisor right now about what they would want in a platform construction? So that's the first thing. And the other thing, just before I forget, because my mind is a big mush these days, what is the mindset of a platform, or your platform now, having gone through what you've gone through? So kind of advisor questions, and then also, how does the platform feel now?
Yeah, so okay, I'm going to go with the first one, and my brain is also mush. I think it's an age thing, so I might forget.
You're not as old as me.
So remind me if I forget this again. But the first one, and here's the really, and this goes back to what I was saying before. Here's the really interesting thing. So you can get advisors into the room, ask them what they want. A lot of it will revolve around reporting. A lot of it will revolve around data feeds. Make my life easier. Everything is about, please make my life easier, make my practice more efficient. And then when you get to the nuts and bolts of, do you want this button here or this button here? That's a bit fluffy and unnecessary, actually. But what you really want to get is the requirements as opposed to the prescription. Because actually what you need to do as an innovative proposition team is take those requirements and then solve for them. So, I mean, if you, I'm just trying to think of an example, but it might be as simple as, I want to be able to access my platform anytime. Okay, so, but that doesn't mean necessarily 24/7 web access to do everything. It's about the platform then taking what the advisor says and then making it relevant, sensible, and practical, and then doing the things that they need to do on the back to solve for those requirements. So it's really, really important you don't ask the advisor for solutions, you're asking them for requirements. And then from there, you try and get them to a really creative space about what if this, what if that, how could it be, particularly from a reporting perspective, what would the best report you can think of look like? Yeah. So you really got to get them to blue sky, as opposed to, well, I really like so-and-so's report over here. Can you just do it? Can you just
make it like that? Yeah.
Yeah. You've got to get away from that. You've got to get to requirement as opposed to solution. So that's the first thing. What was the second question?
It was what's the mindset of the platform now?
Yes, thank you very much. So what's the mindset of a platform now? So look, I mean, you started off this conversation asking me, what's the journey been like? And if I'm honest, there's been some really tough times. There's been some really fantastic times as well. And when you're working in a team, as I'm working with, that team becomes really close. And I'm a big team person. My whole world is about building teams and getting the best out of people. And that's what I show up to work for. So when I think about mindset, I think very much about that working as a team. You've got your proposition, you've got your ops people feeding in, you've got my team feeding in, and then together you're coming together to form a really cohesive culture. And that's what people forget. It's a culture that delivers a platform. It's not a set of tasks that you have to complete. It's a culture, it's a way of being. Now, if I think back to where we were 4.5, 5 years ago when I first came in, I think, I'll be perfectly honest, we were pretty arrogant. We were one of those platforms that go, yeah, all those people in the UK, they took ages to deliver platforms. We're going to race through this. We're going to nail this in a couple of years. It never, I mean, Emma, have you ever known a platform be delivered in 2 years?
No, not well.
No, exactly.
Not start to finish either.
No, exactly. And so if I was to start again, I'd say, set your expectations realistically about what you're going to get for when. Now, actually, we've delivered a platform in probably actually a pretty quick time compared with other platforms globally which have been delivered. I think 4.5 years in your world is pretty damn quick, actually. And yes, it's not everything. It's not complete. We're still delivering bits of it. There's still quite a few features we want to deliver. But as Seth Godin says, if you wait for perfection, you never go live. You've got to get out there. You've got to get out there with what you've got. You've got to show your advisors what you've got. You've got to lift your skirt. You've got to test the pipes, and then you've got to do it in a controlled manner. And then and if advisors like what they're seeing, and I was in a meeting this morning with one of our big networks, and I'm always quite realistic about where we are from launching a platform perspective. I think that's so important about being realistic. And they turned around to me and said, George, we think it's fantastic. We love your platform. We just need these things delivered. Of course, there's a great long list of stuff. but so that's the thing. So you might not go to market with a complete proposition, but as long as you manage expectations that you've got this regular delivery cadence of new features coming on, and you do that up front, then I think you're going to win in this market. But if I was to have my time again, I'd manage it much better 4.5 years ago. I was that person arrogantly saying, we're going to do it in 2 years. Of course we will. No, nobody does it in 2 years. Nobody does it well in 2 years.
I think that's a really good point. I think, and for anyone listening and thinking about this going forward, I think that's a really good point. And the other point is that regulation, it's certainly over here, but regulation changes every 5 minutes anyway, and things happen. So whatever you decide with the post-it notes on day one about what you want it to look like, 2 years later, even a year later, things start to change and things become more important. The boundaries change, don't they? And things become more important or less important. We've done a big, one of our big areas of expertise at the moment is around microservices, but those individual things. So, coming up towards the end of the financial year, the end of tax year over here, everyone's worrying about CGT. The amount of interest we have about our CGT engine, for instance, is a lot more this time of year than it is any other time of the year, because those things are so important, and it just goes up and down the list. But it is that kind of componentized area of building the building blocks that you want to start a platform, but also to continually evolve those building blocks as you go down the line. And I think, you will tell me, but you're never ever going to end up when you've finished building your platform, because it will just continually evolve because you're living it.
I was asked by an internal person, what does the finished Innate look like? and I said, I don't know, because it will never be finished. Because there's all sorts of wonderful things. Really like blue sky ideas that we are coming up with, particularly as we're part of a really, we're Africa's biggest financial institution now. With Standard Bank, Liberty, there's all sorts of stuff we can build that will go into the platform. So there is no finished view of what it's going to look like. And I think that's so important. You mentioned about microservices and regulation there, Emma. And here's an interesting thing. And this is we started this conversation about replatforming. Why should you replatform? We had a piece of regulation over here in South Africa called T-Day, which was really a change to the retirement funds, effectively. And it came in very quickly, and it had to be implemented in about 3 months. And of course, we're still running our legacy Stanlib platform, and of course, we've got Innate. So we had to implement that regulation on both platforms. On Innate, we had a small squad working alongside our 11 other squads, looking to deliver all the different features that we're trying to do. And it just got delivered at the right time, as and when it should have done. And that's the benefit of having the new tech, the new house, if you like. Stanlib, it took up 85% of the available capacity for development during that quarter. And even then, it was a massive scramble at the end to try and get it in place in time. And that's the benefit of having a new high-tech platform. That's the benefit. There it is right there. You know, T-Day delivery was absolutely your case in point as to why you need new platform technology.
Yeah, obviously the platform is the biggest bit of integration and where most advisors kind of spend their time. But what's the next thing for advisors, do you think, in terms of their integration? Do they shout at you, for instance, for integrating into other things? Or do you see those other things becoming part of the platform solution to make a kind of end-to-end journey going forward?
That's such a good question, Emma. So I think the philosophy, and then we go back to philosophy and culture and the principles on which you want to build a platform. And our principle is very much, and this is a very sort of South African thing, you know, there's a massive diverse range of F&A tools, CRM tools. Some do one well, some do something else better. Then you've got the DFM tools and that DFM capability, and people wanting to pull together all the data from all the different platforms there and spit out reports to clients. There's a huge array of that. And I know in the UK, you've got one or two, and that's kind of the mainstream. Here, there's lots. And there's lots here for various reasons, but mainly because I think there's a lot of really savvy advisors here who build their own tech and then sort of send it out really and sell it out. But so I think they do it better than we would do it. And I have had advisors say to me, George, why don't you do something end-to-end, like, you know, end-to-end advice all the way through? Mm-hmm. That's not our bag. Our bag is because the tool that we would just develop wouldn't be right for everyone. It would actually probably narrow our market rather than broaden it. And the reason I say that is everyone has a different slant, a different need in their own business. What you know, some people want a lot more on the modeling side, whereas some people want less on the modeling side and more on like I said earlier, the CRM side. So our role and our principle isn't to prescribe that stuff. It's much more about integrating into that stuff. So now we come to the question of, well, how do you do that? And actually the team at the moment is wrestling with, well, what does that package of data that comes out of our machine look like? Do we give a standard block of data? Because each of these systems wants data in a different way, and that makes it really difficult as well. So, and you don't want to end up with, you know, 3 months to build one integration to one F&A tool, 3 months to build another integration to another one. You don't want to end up there. You actually want to produce a block of data that says, here's the data, it's got everything you need, you cut and slice it. And I think over time you will get to an industry standard of, here's the data cube that everyone produces, which makes life easier for every advisor, but we're nowhere near that at the moment. So yes, I think the compilation of data is one of the biggest problems for advisors at the moment in their practices. And it's what's the best way of doing it? And until you get a lead or you know, someone really taking the helm on this and actually taking it by the horns, and I know people like Iris and people like that are trying to do that, then I think we're going to sort of flounder around for a little bit and end up with, you know, spitting out of data here, spitting out of data here. It really does need someone to come along, grab it by the horns and go, the cube needs to look like this. Build it the other way, the API end, the receiving end, to be able to receive that cube. And I think when we get there, then life becomes a lot easier for all the advisors. But I do think it's an industry problem to solve. There's other stuff we can learn from the UK. I mean, I'm thinking, you know, transfer ins here, and you know, the smoothness of transfer ins here is not smooth at times, and transfer out, of course, that's the other side of it. But in the UK, I know you've got this wonderful system, and it's done in a matter of hours. And again, it's an industry problem to solve. We've got to come together, get the solution, agree on the solution, and then solve it together. And we haven't done that yet. So there's real value adds for advisors that I think product providers, platform providers need to come together and go, in the interest of our advisors and their clients, we need to solve these things. And I think that'll happen.
I would just like to ask you kind of one more question, if you don't mind. What does tomorrow look like? So what are the things that actually you would like, you had your meeting, your network meeting this morning. What are the things that you would like to do as soon as possible, if you're able to share any of that?
Yeah, and there's lots that I would like to do as soon as possible. I mean, we talked about data integrations. That's so important to me. And already we've got 17 data integrations on the platform. We just need some more. There's, I think reporting can always be enhanced. We've got reporting there, but I think it can be improved, and we're very open and honest about that. We've got a new drop for that in April coming along, which I think is going to really improve and wow the advisors that are using our platform. The bit that really excites me actually is the web and how that looks. There's a wonderful program we're using. A lot of it comes out of Israel actually, and it's called Walk Me, and it sits on top of your web, and it can provide you with web bots that help people navigate the web. It also gives us a whole load of stats about where people fall over, where do they spend too much time, and just that data. I mean, we're talking about data again, but that data into us is so important, because then we can build those journeys better. So for me, that's really important. And then there's the client servicing part, which obviously is really important to me. I look after that team. And it's using really innovative ways in which we can interact with our advisors. We use various email management software tools, but they've got so many different add-ons now that we are starting to explore. I don't think it's going to be too far in the future where we won't be writing an email, we'll be recording a video and sending it to the advisor. And, things like that are really cool. But it's that innovative way and human way in which you need to interact with your advisors and their clients. So that's the exciting part for me. It's not really around the financial products. I was talking to someone yesterday and he said, we're in the business of people, not the business of money. And that's so true.
But thank you so much for appearing on SATalks.
Lovely. Thank you so much for having me, Emma.